Becoming the most divine version of who you are doesn't mean that you'll avoid challenges or difficulties. You can't just make space for everyone else and everything else and ignore the fact that you take up space too. You can't expect other people to see you as a priority if you don't see yourself as one. You are real, vulnerable, authentic, confident, revolutionary world changer who is strong because of who she is. Everything that makes our world function began as an idea in God's mind that He extended to earth, humanity. So each morning when I wake up, I'm able to say, "Thank you, God, for allowing me to borrow your breath today." Hi guys, good morning. How are you guys doing today? I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Achinga Official from Kenya, but currently I live in the capital, which is Nairobi. And thank you so much for clicking into this video. And if you are a Chi Squad, thank you so much for always coming back to watch my videos, to know how your girl is doing. As you can see, your girl is doing good. I thank God for life. I'm looking fantastic, like I'm just feeling so good to be here, you know. So guys, we haven't read this book for 2 days now, and it feels like I really need to do more of this, you know. So on the last reading session that we had, we did chapter 6, and if you're watching this, please go check it out. It really has very a good messages in there that might help you. Maybe you've been struggling to do something. Maybe you've been okay, maybe you've been struggling to do something and you doubt yourself, you know. So it's gonna help you to reach where you want to be. Okay, it's gonna help you just to motivate yourself to keep doing it even if you don't feel like doing it, you know. So guys, if you're here, there's a book that I have been reading. It's called Woman Evolve by Sarah Jakes Roberts. This is a very nice book, you guys. So I'll continue saying this because each and every day we get new service in the channel. So this is the first book that I started off with, just to improve on my public speaking skills and also to improve on my English, because why not? Okay, because why not? So this is a very nice book, you guys. Okay, check out my previous reading sessions if maybe you're watching me for the first time. Okay, so you can get to know more about this book. It's gonna be a blessing, and I don't want to waste any time yapping here. We want to go straight into the reading. So today we're doing chapter 7 of the Woman Evolve, and our topic is going to be good goes hard. Good goes hard. Then the man said, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate." That is Genesis 3:12. I've got to be honest with you. When God challenged my heart toward Eve, it shifted the way I related to Adam. At first, I felt bad for the guy. I mean, Adam was out there minding his own business, doing what he's supposed to do, when Eve comes over and sets him up for failure. All that changed when I started relating to Eve. Through that lens of compassion, I saw Adam's response to God regarding what occurred in the garden as throwing Eve under the bus. The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate. That is Genesis 3:12. My allegiance to Eve has forced me to consider a new plan when I make it happen, when I make it to heaven. I need to do what any good friend would do: confront her friend's partner about him trying to make her look bad in front of the guy in charge. I have it all planned out in my head. Scene 1. This is like a play. I think it's a play. It's a play portraying the book. Sir Junior enters pearly gates of heaven and heads towards Gold Boulevard. Angelic music begins to play. Sir Junior looks around in wonder, then spots Adam at a worship service. Sir Junior walks with passion toward Adam. Sir Junior clears throat and begins to whisper, excuse me, you don't know me, but I am from Earth. I did time from 1988 to 2088. I've been meaning to talk to you about what happened in the garden because it's been upsetting me and my homegirls. Why didn't you do a better job trying to protect Eve? Sir Junior's voice begins to rise. Sir Junior, like when you first saw her in the garden, you was all like flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone. She shall be called woman. Sir Junior's now at full yell. When you first met her, you were all like, ooh, man. I love this part. Ooh, man. But when she messed up and the big man found out, what did you tell him? Sir Junior, head tilt, lips poked, and dramatic pose. All of a sudden, she's the woman you gave me. Sir Junior is escorted out of heaven by Gabriel and Michael. And that is end of scene 1. I love this. It's more of a drama like scene, like people act. It's a nice one. Okay, after playing out that scene with a few reruns, I knew I needed to go back to the text to reconcile my feelings toward Adam. Can you blame me? My loyalty has limits, and I'm not going to hell or jail for nobody. Also, if you're taking notes, you need to know that you can't be petty in heaven. So if you have hurt in your heart towards someone, you'd better find a way to get that resolved before you get to those pearly gates. I began the hard work. I had to be willing to see things from his perspective and not through the lens of my newfound affinity for Eve. I closed my eyes, went back to the garden, and imagined being Adam before Eve. The first man, Adam. The lone human is buzzing world of animals, birds, rivers, mountains, and sea stands here, utilizing his creativity to give unique names to every creature. He takes in the good that is God's gift to him. The first to observe the undisturbed, intricate detail God has placed into manufacturing his home. Adam sees the earth the way it was meant to be. Loneliness is not even a worry or concern, yet God knows one day it will emerge. So into a slumber Adam is placed, while the finishing touches to the earth are traced. Until this moment, no species that looks like him has been in his view. And then, with the fluttering of his eyes, Eve comes into view. Imagine the joy and elation he possesses in finally seeing a creature that looks like him. At the time that God says it's not good for man to live alone, man wasn't requesting a friend or a counterpart. God answered his prayers before he could even pray them. Then Adam worshipped God for knowing him better than he knew himself. He gets to live in the beauty of that blessing for only a brief time because, well, he shares the world with the woman and they are surrounded by nothing but goodness, beauty, and grace. Then suddenly it all changes. What happens in the garden does not just result in the fall of humanity. For Adam, it represented a shift in maintaining trust when something that God gives you goes from good to bad. A curse, this is like a subtopic, a curse or a blessing. Rehearsing that visual was when the ice melted from my heart and I was able to fully relate to what it must have been like to be Adam. We have several moments of biblical precedent inviting us on a journey of observing what happens when something that starts off as a good thing becomes challenging. Like when Joseph was placed in prison after already being sold by his brothers, or when the children of Israel began rebelling against Moses, or when Jesus was in the garden praying until drops of blood fell from his head. If you've ever experienced such a moment, then you know that the first thing we begin doing is wondering if it was God in the first place. We talk so much about the Europa and peace that comes when we are in God's will, but I will not be responsible if I did not prepare you for the moments when good goes bad. You are going to make some decisions, and when you make those decisions, there are going to be some moments when you know you are in God's will. But sometimes you're also so tired and weary that you aren't sure whether or not you want to stay in God's will. It's like when a woman makes the decision to celibate, but then dating becomes a gazillion times harder. Or when you choose to quit the addiction, then realize you won't be able to hang out with your friends without being tempted. You choose to save money, but then you're no longer living the lifestyle you've become accustomed to. You thank God for the children, but the children are driving you crazy. The examples are countless, but the feelings are similar. God doesn't always equal easy, and easy doesn't always mean that it's good. Now that we've established the likelihood of having a tough time when you're doing the right thing, I know what you want to ask. How should I respond when what started off as good becomes hard? I'm glad you asked. Hopefully, you are already beginning to receive some comfort in knowing that you don't have to experience guilt for being overwhelmed or confused about how you feel toward what you know is a blessing. I'm also praying that this serves as a sort of preparation for women venturing out of their comfort zone. I need to remember that just because something gets hard doesn't mean it's not of God. Becoming the most divine version of who you are doesn't mean that you'll avoid challenges or difficulties. I know this because I've studied the life of Jesus and it was not all smooth sailing for him. I know you've had this thought too, but I'm wondering if you're really okay with this truth. I think most of us subconsciously believe that surrendering our comfort and pursuing a life that allows God to lead us and guide us should guarantee peace, joy, loyalty, health, provision, and protection. We live with this in our subconscious, and when things happen that are in direct opposition to that belief, we become frustrated and hurt because we thought that our sacrifice will result in perpetual satisfaction. Remember how I told you about God being able to work out all things for our good? Well, in the process of God working, we sometimes don't have a clue what's going on. Not only do we not have a clue, but we often begin to resent that we even trusted God in the first place. Can we be real? If you were Adam, wouldn't you have wondered whether you were better off by yourself? When God brings a person or opportunity into your life and you no longer feel as blessed as you did when you first met them or received it, I think you have to speak. I, I think you have to ask yourself, did the blessing change? or did I change? I like that part. Did the blessing change or did I change? There are so many definitions of blessings, but for the sake of this context, I'd like to define a blessing as God allowing His resources to become our own. Everything that makes our world function began as an idea in God's mind that He extended to earth. Whether He gave humanity the idea and then facilitated the moments that will bring it to life, or He set it in motion at the beginning of time, blessing is just what God does. That's why every morning I wake up is another blessing. In the beginning, God created His breath into humanity. So each morning when I wake up, I'm able to say, thank you, God, for allowing me to borrow your breath today. Meditation is so powerful because it forces us to take intentional breaths. When we breathe intentionally, we are able to still our mind and bring peace to our spirit. The same thing happens when we are worshiping, praying, or in a service. Why is that? Because when we meditate, we are awakened to the power of our own breathing. That power has a source. Take an intentional deep breath. You just breathe in a blessing. Sometimes I get so caught up in my tasks and list of things to do that my work starts to feel like work when it started off feeling like a blessing. My work is a blessing. God allowed me to borrow His creativity, gifts, and talents to begin my ministry. I wake up some mornings and see the blessing that is my husband. My marriage is a blessing because God extended my husband to me. The same goes for my friends, children, and parents. God is so generous toward us that something can even start off a curse and end up a blessing. A blessing is only a blessing as long as we see it from God. The moment we begin to see the blessing as our norm, responsibility, or burden, the value begins to decrease because we no longer honor it as coming from God. If you know for a fact that your job is a blessing from God, but your boss tap dances on your last nerve, I want to challenge you to not let that boss hijack your blessing mentality. Now, girl, don't get it twisted. I'm not telling you to be a pushover and just take whatever happens to you. I'm suggesting that when confronting whatever is standing in the way of you seeing your blessing properly, remember it all began as a blessing. If your marriage is from God and your husband starts stressing you out, it doesn't mean that your feelings aren't justified. But I would challenge you to ask yourself if the version of you who saw your husband as a blessing is showing up in your marriage every day. How can the version of you who sees your husband as a blessing communicate what you're feeling while staying mindful that he is from God? The same is true for every good and perfect gift that God has brought into your life. Whether it's job opportunity, child, a school, or a parent, we must strive to live in the consciousness that the blessing came from God. That means the solution to the dilemma can only be found when we honor that God is in it. That's why when my husband and I counsel individuals, we are not just looking at the history or chemistry. We are looking for the good factor when both parties possess the irrefutable knowing that their partner is a gift from God. If a couple has the God factor, then we feel our role and responsibility is to get them to God. If we are able to handle whatever is in our relationship with the honor in mind, we will navigate our issues with honor and sensitivity because we never want to defame what God gave us. By the way, just because a marriage doesn't start with God doesn't mean that God can't become the center of it. But it does require that each person come to a place where God is the center of their character and identity. With this in mind, the petty version of me can no longer assume that when Adam called Eve the woman you gave me, he was throwing her under the bus. Perhaps Adam decided to make sure that even amid confusion, he never forgot that the blessing came from God. This mindset is one we'll have to employ as we continue to grow and move forward. We cannot fall victim to the narrative that walking with God is akin to a stress-free vacation that will only prosper us, but rather the narrative that we found a path worthy of sacrifice, which offers restoration and reconciliation for anything we lose along the way. This is called perspective. But you can't have this level of perspective if you are living your life like a speed racer on autopilot. In order to maintain the mentality of your blessing, you have to insist that there's room in your life for you to be hypersensitive to the rhythm of rest, introspection, and intentional joy available to you in any given season. But it's not unusual for us to get so caught up in living our lives like we are some kind of machine and then become frustrated when we reach our breaking point. That's when we want to just quit everything. I believe that soul care, not to be confused with self care, begins with taking inventory of the areas of our life where we feel a burden but once felt a blessing. Working it out. This is like a brain what? A brain exercise. Yeah, the journal. Go ahead and grab it. Think through these questions and make notes to record your responses. What area of your life feels like a burden but started off as a blessing? Okay. What was happening in your life at the time this blessing arrived that made you feel fortunate to have it? When was the first time you began to feel like your blessing was a burden? When was the last time that blessing felt like a blessing? Look at what you wrote. Sometimes we need to back away from our blessing so we can see it properly. There may be some areas where you could have been a better steward over your blessing, or maybe as the blessing unfolded, you experienced some surprises that detracted from the honor you had for the blessing. Is there something you need to accept, reject, or change that is clouding your vision of that blessing? Make sure, as you're making this assessment, that you're not looking from the perspective of a burden, but with the consciousness of it being a blessing. When we try to fix our problems from a place of frustration, we can sometimes create more blessings. Example, Sir Junior being kicked out of pretend heaven to being petty, for being petty. When we choose to tackle our issues from the place of honor, our strategy reflects the honor we have for the opportunity in the first place, A job can be a blessing in one season and a catalyst for a new career in the next. Just because you are leaving doesn't mean you tell the boss how rigidly they were on the way out of the door. The way out, on the way out the door. I kid. I know you will never do that, right? You become the good in goodbye when your character remains intact while your presence moves to its next act. That sounds all good, but none of this can happen when you are stressed. When you are stressed, you don't have time to be the bigger person. When you are stressed, it's much easier to be petty than it is to stay silent. That's why the best gift you can give your soul, besides returning to the blessed consciousness, is to make sure you're making time for yourself. It may sound ridiculous, but sometimes you need a reminder that there should be a space for you in your own world. Just because you are in your world doesn't mean that you've made room for you. There are moments when our existence is relegated to living on the outside edges while we create space and a place for everyone else. While we focus on the comfort of others, we often ignore the responsibility we have to ourselves. The, this, the career must be pursued, the waste must be snatched, the home must be clean, the dinner must be cooked, the friends must be in place, the skin must be clear. The pressure is on creating a picture perfect existence with us as the photographer. The only problem is you the only problem is you become so busy creating the picture that you never step in the frame. You can't just make space for everyone else and everything else and ignore the fact that you take up space too. There's a moment in the Bible that speaks to this very thing. In Luke 10:38, Jesus visited two sisters, Martha and Mary. Martha wanted to make sure the house was spick and span for Jesus. Can you imagine the pressure? While she moved busily around the house, serving and preparing things, she looked up and saw her sister Mary sitting at Jesus' feet. Martha is my petty homegirl for this because instead of giving Mary that frustrated girl, if you don't get up right now, look, she snitched on Mary to Jesus. She expected Jesus to reflect the man of the time and put Mary in her place as a woman. But Jesus said something surprising in the response to her complaint. And Jesus answered and said to her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many things, but one thing is needed, and Mary has chosen that good part, which will not be taken away from her. That is Luke 10:41-42. What's interesting about Jesus' statement is that he wasn't going to spend the rest of his time there with Martha and Mary. Soon enough, he'd be heading to the next town. So when he said that Mary had chosen that good part, which will not be taken away from her, Jesus was not talking about his person. He was talking about what happens when we are in God's presence. What happens when you have a moment of prayer, meditation, intentional breathing, worship, or church? You don't stay in that location forever, but the feeling remains with you wherever you go. As often as you can, you must find time in your day to elevate your worries and troubles and receive a steadiness that cannot be taken away from you. This is like our subtopic. You matter. Your soul matters. Your mental health matters. Your body matters. Your space matters. Your feelings matter. You can't expect other people to see you as a priority if you don't see yourself as one. So often we make self-care about taking time to focus on ourselves. But we can engage in soul care every day by forcing the world to make room for the truth of who we are. That means when your feelings are hurt, you don't try to act tough, but let the people know you are not a punching bag. When you're too tired to go, you don't force yourself to show because you don't have to spare battery you can just swap out. When you need help, you let the words come out of your mouth and you do not wait until you have no other option. You do it before you run out of options. Why do we ask for help as a last minute resort? Yes, I'm preaching to myself too. I go to the grocery store and I become the Hulk, getting the grocery out of the car by myself. I waddle into the house with the bags pressing into my skin as I try to support the unbalanced weight between my arms. Everyone starts yelling, "Why didn't you ask for help?" I would have asked for help if I didn't have it under control, but I had it. So there was no need for help. That's exactly how we spend most of our day. We spend to the limit and only get relief when the pressure becomes too much. Wait, if we found a way to incorporate our care regime that doesn't require us being at our breaking point before we ask for help, I truly believe there's a difference between self care and soul care. But I also believe the definition is different for each person. For some people, running is soul care. It's how they clear their mind from the stress of the day. They say things like they feel free and weightless when they run. I think that is so beautiful, remarkable, really. I consider running self care. It's something I do to take care of myself, but it does not make me feel rested. I feel strong, focused, and intentional when I finish running. But I do not feel rested and relaxed. Soul care for me is meditation, reading a book, or sleeping. I think it's important that we know what self care is for us versus soul care. Self care may be something that makes you feel good afterward but doesn't actually give you peace in the moment. Okay, both are important to being balanced, and unfortunately, neither of them seems to be easy to experience consistently. Here is a challenge for you: start a self care, soul care match with someone close to you. Guys, I'm so sorry about the noise. It's a hawker. So in Kenya we have something like you maybe you have so many clothes in the house or utensils or basins that you're not using anymore, so you can give them out so you can get something in return. I don't know how it's called in English, but in Kenya it's called mali mali. You give me, I give you. So let's say I have so many shoes in my house that I'm not wearing. Like the last time I wore them maybe was last year or 2 years ago. So I give them out so I can get something in return. And the thing in return might be a basin, a laundry basket. So it's like advertising, it's like shouting so people can go. If you have something to give, you can give, so you can give you something in return. The goal is to do one thing a day that is self care or soul care. Instead of ending your day with the things you need to get done tomorrow or thinking of what you accomplished, make a list of what you did for you. Okay. I have found that when I'm not doing a good job of taking care of myself, I get very very irritated when people start asking me to do things. And by things, I mean them asking me to fulfill an expectation that I set in the first place. Like when my children ask me for dinner, or my team asks me to respond to an email. I mean, seriously, why would these people continue to ask me to feed them and lead them when I haven't fed or led myself? When our normal responsibilities start feeling like demands from tyrants, the good has become hard, the blessing a burden, and our breaking point is inevitable. That's when we start looking for shortcuts instead of exerting our mental capacity to problem solve. When we start looking for the easiest way to get things done, we stop innovating and begin depending on what we already know. This continues until we have about 15 extra pounds we didn't ask for, 300 unread emails, 6 children to feed, 1 husband to romance, a host of friends to support, and wait, this is supposed to be about you, not me. We need to get to the point where we aren't waiting to hit our breaking point before we ask for the help. I want to help us get to a place where we are able to take breaks even when we don't need them. So we are not living life like in sprints, rapid bursts, and then breaks, but rather with a steady, calculated endurance that allows us to preserve ourselves in the process. Okay. You are likely asking why. When good becomes hard, it's meant to force us to stop functioning the way we were so we can create new rhythms and paradigms. Innovation is the product of frustration. When you become frustrated enough with the way something is, you'll find a way to create a better process. The level of innovation doesn't occur until we acknowledge something isn't working, back away to identity where the malfunction is, and then re engage with a plan to stop the frustration from occurring again. Do you know why God tells us early on in Genesis that the war of seed will end in victory? Because God knew how to zoom out of the picture, acknowledge what which acknowledge what this issue was, and then re-engage. The entire Bible is ultimately the playing out of God's word in the garden. Everything we read after Genesis 3:15 is how God continues to partner with humanity until the time is right to introduce seed that darkness cannot defeat. If darkness is beginning to cloud your vision, then innovation is ready to be released in your world. Stress is a sign that it's time to reassess how you are structured. It's tempting to take a vacation and then dive back into pre-existing rhythm. But whenever possible, consider if there is a better way to function that you don't currently see. What if the pre-existing rhythm that caused the stress could be tweaked so you are not repeating a cycle? Moses is one of my favorite Bible characters. Exodus depicts the story of how Moses rose as a leader to the Hebrews. At the time of his birth, there was a declaration that every son born to Hebrew woman must be killed. Moses' mother was a Hebrew woman who defied this order and instead placed him in a basket and floated it down the river. His sister stood by watching until he was found by an Egyptian princess. Moses was raised in the Egyptian kingdom, but he was a Hebrew child. His existence became complicated, so he disengaged from it altogether. He could not stay disengaged though. God needed him to return to the place of his frustration, but armed with a perspective that would uncomplicate his experience. These are moments when we leave a situation because it's too challenging or complicated. When we leave the place to which we are called, we can never stay gone until our work in that place is done. If you're reading this and you've allowed your frustration to force you to run, it's time to stop running. You can't run just because things get hard or because you start to feel like you are in over your head. You can step away, take a breath, and recalibrate. But your days of cowering down and shrinking in front of hard are over. I pray that you would come to a place of permission to acknowledge how you feel, but to not be governed by your feelings alone. Had Moses stayed away from the place where he experienced frustration, he never would have discovered what God placed inside him. He would have ultimately been living unfulfilled because he wasn't living out God's dream for his life. I don't want you to miss out on getting to know you. You may be thinking that you're better off on the sidelines, not making any waves, but also not realizing that God sees you as a force. Don't let the hard things trick you. You are stronger than you believe. Yet neither do I suppress my emotions and pretend I'm okay when I'm really not strong. You are real, vulnerable, authentic, confident, revolutionary world changer who is strong because of who she is, not because of who she pretends to be. The quicker you learn to harness your power and balance who you are, the sooner you can get to the business of exploring the depths of the strength God has placed in you. You are made to overcome hard things. When good goes hard, you go harder. Okay? So guys, that's it for chapter 7. Guys, I can't lie to you, but I've learned a lot in this chapter. I think you've learned a lot too. Okay, let me know what you've grabbed on today's reading session. Let me know what you grabbed. Okay, and if that girl are reading watching me right now, just know it's gonna get better soon. You know what I mean? It's gonna get better soon. Okay, and there's something that I've read here that has really got my attention, and this is going to be the topic of this reading session. When good goes hard, you go harder, and that's on period. Guys, see you on to the next reading session. Please remember to like the video. Please remember to comment. Let me know what you think about today's video. Let me know what you've grabbed on today's reading session. Until next time, guys, bye bye.